Hello bread lovers! Today we are making kneaded loaves. So we're going to be making a boule, which is a circular loaf, and then we're going to make a batard, which is a oval shaped loaf. So, still using yeast. We're not doing any sourdough or anything like that. So, in order to make that, so I'm making two at the same time, and technically the book that I'm following, which is Bread Baking for Beginners by Ohara, they have them separated where you do a boule and then you do a batard. I'm doing one of each. But still, both of those have the boule, you make 2 loaves, and the batard, you make 2 loaves, according to the recipe she has. You can cut the recipe in half if you don't want to make 2, which as a beginner, I understand, or as someone who doesn't eat that much bread. I'll tell you what you need for the half recipe as well, but I'm going to be doing both. So you're going to need, pretty similar to the last couple ones we've been doing, a little bit extra mixing bowl. Actually, what I'm going to end up doing, which is what this is for, I'm going to rise the dough in here because I have 2 loaves, so there's going to be more dough. So there's a little more room in here than there is in this bowl. So I normally use this when I make double loaves. But you could use a big bowl and be fine. I've done it before. This is just kind of an extra thing if you want it to put your dough in to rise, and I'm going to show you when we get to that step how I do that. Then, so you need a mixing bowl to mix your ingredients in, like always. This, like I said, if you want to rise it in here, and I'll get to the ingredients in a minute, but to proof your dough, we're going to use bannetons again. I have a circular one for a boule, and I have a batard one, an oval shaped one for a batard. And then to bake, I have my Dutch oven here. So what I'm going to use to bake my circular loaf, you can use it for your batard as well, which I might end up doing because I'll tell you why. Because this is normally what I would use to cook a batard, but the last time I used this pan, or whatever it is, I noticed that there was a crack in it as I was baking my last loaf, which was a couple weeks ago that I used this one. And there was a crack in it, if you can kind of see there. And then when I pulled it out to use it possibly last week, because I was going to make a batard, and I did film some of that process, you're going to see it in another video, this happened where there's a giant crack in it. I thought maybe I could still use it. Nope. So, gonna be getting rid of this. I have ordered a pseudo replacement. It's not a replacement of this. It's not another Le Creuset. It's a cheaper version, and I got it on Amazon, and it's on its way today. So hopefully it'll be here by the time I bake my loaves. We'll see. If not, I can always use this, or I can use another pan I have too. I just would rather have an oval shaped pan. It's just personal preference. So for ingredients, if you're making 2 loaves, 500 grams of flour. So again, I have mine pre-measured in 500 grams each. And then 20 grams of salt. So 10 each I have. And then you're gonna keep the yeast the same. So it's gonna be 8 grams because this just determines how fast your loaf or your dough rises and things like that. So even if you were to have this recipe, which basically is one of each of these, so 500 grams of flour and 10 grams of salt, you would keep the yeast the same at 8 grams. And water is 720 grams for the 2 loaves. And it would be, if you half that, it would be 360. So it's a little different than what we've been using for the no-knead breads. And I will give you the volumetric measurements on the screen because I don't know those offhand. I'll figure that out before I post the video. Other things you might need are, we're going to be scoring the loaves this time. So we didn't do that in the last couple. So if you have a lamb, something like this, these actually have like flexible kind of plastic razor blades, which is part of the reason why I don't like them. But I have these 2. One of them was a gift, so the other one I bought, but I barely ever use these. I have used them occasionally depending on what kind of shape I want to make on my dough, but I'm not going to do anything fancy today anyway. Normally what I do is use just a regular razor blade. I have a whole pack of them that I bought. Here's one. So, razor blade, or you can use a knife. Like any old knife, like a steak knife. You can use to cut, just something to cut a line in your dough. Maybe even a pizza cutter, depending on what kind of dough you're making. Also, if you don't want to mix with your hands, just like with any of the other recipes, you can use a dough whisk or Danish dough whisk or a regular whisk, a spoon, something to mix the dough. But I use my hands, so I always prefer that. Like I said, you can get these plastic scrapers. They're really great. I use this every time I make bread. And then there's also like a metal bench scraper, which is similar, but it's a little harsher. And you can use it to cut, which we're actually going to do in this one. If you make 2 loaves, you have to cut the dough in half. So this works pretty well for that. But also to scrape, stuff off the counter and move the dough around sometimes if you need to. You can do that with a plastic one too. But that is basically what you need. All right, for the water this time, I'm going to put it in this container so I can see volume-wise what I'm looking for. So 720 grams of water. Went a little bit over. Oh, now it's even more over. Okay, hold on, let me get that. All right, so that is 720 grams is about a hair over 3 cups, and like maybe 24.5 ounces. All right, so that's the water. Everything else is measured, so I don't need this anymore. But if you were measuring everything out by weight, if you didn't do that ahead of time, I'm gonna put this in my bowl now. So again, I always put the water in first, like so. And then I put in the yeast, 8 grams. And I need to stir it up a bit. I usually use a whisk for this part. Just get it like dissolved in there before I get everything else in. Doesn't really have to sit because it's instant yeast. Then let it sit for a little bit, let it bubble up. Then I can put some flour in. So again, I'm making 2 loaves, so this is going to be 1,000 grams of flour. And I'm using bread flour. You can use all-purpose if you want. Technically, the recipe calls for all-purpose. Here we go. And now I add the salt on top. Again, this is 20 grams if you're making both loaves, and if you're making one, it would be 10 grams. And I always separate the salt from the water and the yeast by the flour so that the salt doesn't interact with the yeast too much before everything gets mixed. Otherwise, it might change things a little. I'm going to wash my hands. All right. I'm going to mix this by hand like I normally do. And I have my plastic scraper to help me scrape off the dough for my hand. And again, you can use a whisk if you prefer with this, or whatever else you want to use to mix it. But hand, I don't mind using my hands, and I wash them. And my husband doesn't mind because we're the ones eating the bread. So, but you can get things incorporated better if you use your hands to mix. I think you can really feel if things are actually mixed together correctly. See, we've got some flour on the bottom that's not really incorporated yet. I'm gonna scrape this off, get most of it off so I can kind of use my hand better. And then I'm gonna also scrape the bottom of the bowl with the scraper and the sides. Try to get that flour incorporated in better from the bottom. All so basically, get it all incorporated together as much as possible. All the ingredients off the side if possible, and the bottom. And it all kind of sticks together. That's the point where it's done mixing, basically. And I'm gonna, again, scrape the excess off my fingers. All right, now wash my hand again. All right, so now I'm gonna let my dough rest for 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll do some kneading, because that's the next step. All right, the dough is done resting. So now we're gonna knead the dough. All right. So you don't want to add too much flour because that's going to change the consistency of the dough if it gets all sucked up in there. This light amount probably won't do much, but if you put too much on, you might have a problem. Before I start, if you can do it, just with your hands, I would recommend, especially if you're a beginner, wetting your hands. So you're gonna be adding a little bit of water to the dough now too, plus the flour, so that'll help. But also, it keeps your fingers from sticking to the dough too much. Now you also want to keep, if you have it, your plastic scraper handy, because you're gonna need to scrape your hands. And I'm gonna be using both my hands this time, not just one. So it's gonna be harder to grab things if I need to, because both my hands are gonna be dirty. So I think we're ready. All right, so I'm gonna wet my hands. I'll wash them and then wet them. And then we're gonna knead the dough. Not gonna dry my hands. I'm gonna get some of the excess water off. And then I'm gonna use my scraper and scrape the dough out onto the floured countertop. In there, I'm going to scrape it out like that. And we'll rinse that off in a minute. Now to knead, yes, you can see, okay, good. To knead, there's a couple ways you can do it, like I said. Basically in the book, I think it says something about stretching the dough out like this, and then kind of pulling it back, and then doing a quarter turn, and then doing it over and over again. So I'll start out like that and show you how that is, but you kind of develop your own little rhythm as you go along. So basically what the book says is to stretch this out, fold it back, quarter turn, stretch this out, fold it back, quarter turn, like that as you're going, and you can kind of use one hand to hold and one to stretch as you go. Now, another thing I do is just basically kind of alternate my hands and just push the dough and kind of turn it as I'm going. That's kind of my method of kneading, but other people do other things. People do kind of circular things sometimes. Just whatever, basically you're exercising the dough like it's a muscle kind of, just to get it to, as with the other ones when you're folding, you're building a network of gluten within the dough. So you do this for 5 to 10 minutes, basically until the dough gets to the point where it kind of comes together in like a ball kind of naturally. So depending on how long that takes, it recommends about 5 to 10 minutes. So it's a lot of work. You have to sit here and do it over and over and over again. You're going to build up your arm muscles. In fact, what was it? When I was making bread back in 2021, like every week, I don't remember what it was. I did something. I was out with my family, and I crushed something, or I broke something, or something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but my dad's like, "You're building all those muscles, kneading the dough." I'm like, I guess that's what it is. Because it was kind of like, I didn't think I would, do that. I don't remember exactly what it was, though. I wish I could remember. could use my arms getting a little stronger and a little more toned. Good thing I'm making bread again more regularly. Just want to kind of stretch it to see how far it stretches without breaking. It's kind of another thing you can look at as you're going. Now this is getting kind of sticky on the outside now because I kind of made it inside out from what it was. But that's, you know, how you work with more hydration. You're going to end up with a much stickier dough. We're going to go through that in later recipes where there is more hydration, where it's harder to knead and you don't want to add too much flour because that'll really ruin what's there. So you have to kind of learn to deal with kneading something that's like highly hydrated like this. So give you kind of a glimpse into that. I think it's going to get real sticky. You're going to have to kind of keep your plastic scraper handy so it can help you move the dough if you need to off the counter, because it's starting to get, like I said, kind of sticky. And maybe even add a little more flour. I might do that. Probably should leave it open. I don't want to, because my hands are dirty. Wet flour, I don't want to. Probably gonna have to wash that a little bit. Add a little more flour to the counter. And so it doesn't stick as much. But you don't want it so that it doesn't stick to itself. It's gonna add too much flour. I think it's stretching pretty far without breaking, that's good. And it's starting to hold its shape pretty well. Like, it doesn't have to be a perfect ball, but you can see that it's starting to kind of not be a blob of dough. It's getting its own little shape going. So that's a good thing. All right, this is looking pretty good. I'm not sure how many minutes it's been because I didn't actually, let's see, 9 minutes filming, so it's probably close to 5 at least that I was going. So I think this is pretty good. You can always go a little more. But it looks pretty good. I'm gonna wash off my hands, scrape off my hands, and then we're gonna let the dough rise next. And I will show you how to do that. All right, so now I'm gonna again let mine rise in this container, but you could put it in the original bowl you used or a different bowl, bigger bowl. I'm gonna put it in here, gonna let it rise for 3 hours, so it's a longer rise this time. And I'm going to use my scraper to get most of the dough off the counter. Because again, it's very sticky. Just going to plop it in there. And then I'm going to I'm just going to let it go for 3 hours. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to film a time lapse of the rising for you so you can see it. But it should pretty much double the size from where it is now. Kind of hard to tell because it's rounded, but we'll see. All right, moved it over here for now. We're going to see how the rise goes. Let's see. All right, so as you saw in the time lapse, this grew quite a bit, probably more than 2 times. It's supposed to grow like twice the size. So what we're gonna do now is, remember I made 2 loaves. So if you didn't do 2 loaves, you only made 1, you don't have to do this, well, you have to take it out, but I'm gonna be cutting mine in half because I'm gonna be cutting them into 2 different loaves. You don't have to do that if you only did the half recipe for only 1 loaf. So just to clarify. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to flour the counter again, take this out, cut it in half, and then we're going to pre-shape the loaves. And then we're just going to let them sit on the counter for 20 minutes and do a bench rest. And then we're going to come back and shape them, and you're going to see the two different shapes depending on which one you want to do. If you want to do both, you know, whatever you're doing to follow along. I'm going to show you how to do a boule, which is the circular one, and then a Batard, which I'm going to show you is the oval one. I'll show you how to shape both of those. So let's get to it. I can use my plastic scraper again to kind of scrape this off the sides. Trying not to kill too much of the bubbles that are inside. I know a lot of recipes say that you should punch down the dough, but I don't like doing that. The difference is, if you don't do this, you get a little more of the open crumb, which I like. But anyway, let's just trying to get it off the side so it doesn't stick as much, and then let it out kind of naturally. It's very slowly coming off the bottom there, as you can see. Come on. There we go. So it's gonna get rinsed. Now we take our. Woo, I don't even want to go in there. It's over here. Tell me. Take our bench scraper, and again, if you only made one loaf, you don't have to do this. But if you made the double recipe with two, you should do it. So I wet this down so it doesn't stick as much. And you could, if you want to be technical about it, you can weigh the dough and then take half the weight. I'm just going to eyeball it. So kind of bite it in the middle, more or less, of the dough. So you have two equal-ish halves. Like I said, you can weigh it if you want, so you can get the exact center, but I'm not going to do that. So move this one out of the way for a minute. You're kind of trying to make it into a little bit of a ball by kind of turning it and scraping it underneath, just to kind of get it in that kind of disc shape. Just a rough disc shape. You don't have to have it perfect right now. This is pre-shaping. Because we're going to let it rest, like I said. Now I'm going to do the same to this one. Just kind of... It's a little hard to do where I'm positioned, but I'm just kind of trying to get it into a shape and then kind of stretching the top of the dough where it looks like, roughly circular like this. Doesn't have to be perfect, like I said, but that is, pre-shaping. Then we're gonna put some flour on the top of this, and we're gonna let them rest for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to do the shaping. I'm going to put a towel over it. Cover it up loosely, if possible, like that. All right, see you in a minute. 20 minutes. All right, so we're done resting. So we're going to make a boule and a Batard. I'm also going to prepare my bannetons here. I'm going to get them floured. I'm going to need a little more anyway because I'm going to have to move one of these over, so that'll work out. All right, so move one of these over. I'm going to start with the boule. It's the easier one anyway. So you're going to flip the dough over because the smoother side technically is on top. Now it's on the bottom. So what you're going to do with a boule is very similar to the folds that we did with our no-knead bread. hopefully there's enough to stick together here. You're gonna take, you know, the far side, fold it down to the middle, and then the bottom up to the middle, and seal it together very well. Then you're gonna turn it and do the same to the, you know, the right and the left, or now the top and the bottom. Seal it on itself, just like we did with the no-knead bread. Now, what you want to do is flip it over again, and you want to create surface tension over the loaf, or the dough. So there's kind of a finesse to it. You want to kind of make this motion where you are cupping and kind of turning it into a little bubble there, kind of turning it into a more of a, you know, disc again, but you're stretching the dough on top to where it's very smooth and it's kind of containing the rest of it on the bottom. So anything that's kind of sticking out, you want to kind of get underneath like this, and kind of just like that, basically. And now this one's done. It's a boule. So I'm going to put that in my brown Benetton, like that. That to the side. Now this one, I'm going to move it over a little. This is a little more challenging. So to make a Batard, you going to kind of stretch it out where it's kind of more rectangular now. You want to first fold the top down to the middle, like this. Then you have these two corners here. You want to fold these in towards the middle again. Kind of seal them to each other. Hopefully, I kind of had a little bit too much flour on the outside right now, so I'm having a little trouble. But hopefully you don't have too much yourself. Now you kind of stretch the bottom corners and do the same thing towards the middle. Kind of get it all together. And then what you're going to do is fold the top down to the bottom like that. So you're going to end up with like an oval shape like that. Flip it back over, and you want to do kind of the similar thing, but a little bit different because you're not making a circle, where you want to kind of stretch to encompass like the rest of it into like an oval shape. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to get used to until you start doing it. But basically you want it, that's all going to get together down there. And then this is going to be like the smoother part of the top of the dough. I know it's not perfectly smooth, but but you don't like basically want any seams like on the top. All goes underneath. Like that. And then we're going to put that in Benetton as well. We'll flip it over so that, again, the smooth side is on the bottom. I don't think I mentioned that with that one, but that's what I meant with that one. And you see, like I said, I had a little too much flour, so, but I'm going to do a little trick. I'm going to wet my finger, and that'll help seal this dough a little more to each other, because it's, you know, got a little too floury. I might use a little more water. But you want to also, another way you can do this is kind of use the heel of your hand to get a nice seam going there. It'll help a little. But that should be pretty good. It'll probably grow into each other, so that's good there. So again, we're going to let these proof now, just like we did before, for about an hour to 2 hours. We're going to check it as we go, but kind of depends on temperature and stuff like that. And like I said, the poke test, so right now it's bouncing back, so it's not quite ready. So we're going to let it go for a little bit, and then we're going to preheat our oven to 475 again, and then our Dutch oven as well. And no, my pan didn't come in yet, and I checked, and it's not supposed to come in for a couple hours, so I'm probably going to have to end up using my Dutch oven for both, but that's fine. I'll have it for the next time. All right, so wash my hands, preheat the oven, cover those. Take this out. But get these covered. I want to sprinkle a little flour on top, not too much, a little bit. Not a little much. Not a little much. I might spread that out a little bit. Okay. Here we go. Alright, like that. Then cover it up with this towel and then let them proof for, I'm going to check it in like an hour, see how it is. Alright, seems like these are done proofing. So I am going to now put one of these in at a time because again my pan didn't come in. Did I say that? Well, I meant to. My pan isn't going to be here until 5:45, maybe later. Also, another thing I bought, besides the pan that I bought, was those, when I talked about the silicone bread sling kind of things that you can put instead of parchment paper, because I hate parchment paper. You can use parchment paper if you want, but I don't want to. Those are also not here yet, so this would have made the next step a little easier. So I kind of have to rough it, but I'm going to do one at a time because I don't have my other pan yet. I'm going to do the boule first. What I have to do to score it, again, if I had parchment paper or my little silicone bread thing, I would empty the Bannaton onto the counter like this with the dough. There's a lot of excess flour on here. And I would, put it on the thing so I could put it gently in the Dutch oven, but I don't get to do that. So, again, I like to use a razor blade to do scoring. You can use a lame. Inside I have some. We'll see. Maybe I'll use it. I'm not too fond of those. At least not the ones I have. There might be better ones. So I'm just going to use a razor blade. It's clean. It's completely new. Could use a knife if you wanted to. And I'm not going to do anything super fancy. And this is a boule. But you want to, at the very least, make a line like horizontally or diagonal, whatever, a line across the dough so that you at least have, the bread has room to expand. Because again, when we made the no-knead bread, when we didn't do the scoring, which wasn't technically part of it, you could see that it kind of burst wherever it wanted to, and you need to give it somewhere to kind of expand properly if you want it to look a little more finished. So, I'm just noticing a little bit of an issue there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, actually what the book says to do with like your first one with a boule is to do an X, but I'm just going to do one. I'm going to do one across like this, and you want this one to be a little deeper because this is the one that it's going to really expand. Now if you want to do anything fancy, you can do, I'm not going to do anything super fancy, but you can do like little marks off like this. And whatever else you want to do, like I said, there's all kinds of different ways you can do that. Maybe I will do a video about that eventually, but right now, this is good for now for me. I'm going to put this in the pan, and then we're going to score this one as well as when we're going to get ready to do that one. Like I said, I wish I could put both in at the same time, but I don't have proper pan for that. So we're going to do this one first. So let me get my Dutch oven up, and we'll plop it in there. Use my hands for that. Very carefully, because again, wish I had parchment paper for this part, but no, I don't wish I had parchment paper. I wish I had silicone for this part, because I don't like parchment paper. I don't have any anyway. But I'm going to carefully pick this up and plop it into my Dutch oven, and then get the Dutch oven in there with the lid on for 25 minutes. 475. All right, the other one is almost done. Stop this. Do that in a moment. I want to score this so that it'll be ready to put in right away. So this is the Batard. Again, I'm flipping it onto the counter. Now really what the book says is just to make a line down the middle, which is pretty much what I'm going to do for this one. But I want to make it a little thicker than I made the last one, because that one wasn't as thick as I thought it was, so didn't really do much in the oven. I took a peek. So just try to get this a little thicker, like so. I'm not going to bother with anything on the sides on this one. And I'm going to pull the other one out of the oven. Where are my hot pans? There they are. Actually, I'm going to turn that off. All right. So here, so you can see. Look at that. All right, let me pull it out. It's again very awkward to do without the silicone or the parchment paper. That's that. It is a little misshapen, but it's gonna taste good, so I don't care. When I see the bottom, give it a little thump. It's looking pretty good. So, not bad. All right, I'm gonna put this one in now. And I'm gonna use, to help me, my bench scraper again with this one, because this one's longer. And it's gonna be a little squished in that Dutch oven, because again, I don't have an oval. I don't have an oval oven or Dutch oven or like thing right now because it's broken. So 1, 2, 3. Oh no. This isn't good. This might be a fail. Yeah, I might have to redo this one. All right, so I was afraid that was gonna happen using the Dutch oven, especially, maybe what I should have done was put it in and then score it. That probably would have been better in this case, because again, I don't have the proper pan for it. I could have put it on a sheet pan, probably should have. That might have been a little better. So, but we're gonna let this one cool, cut into it, do our taste test and everything, and then I will show you the results of this one. It's gonna be a little twisted and weird. It's probably gonna taste fine. It's probably not gonna spring up as much, cause you know, but that's why I should have put it in the fridge and waited for my pan to come and then made it. But I wanted to hurry it up. That's what happens sometimes. So, all right. Couple things. First of all, everything up to this point was fine. And that's how you shape a Batard, the way I did it. You know, that's how you score a Batard, the way I did it. I just, you know, I messed up the baking part because I didn't have the correct pan. There's a couple different things I could have done now that I'm looking in hindsight, but this is what happened this time. I've made Batards before, they turn out fine all the time. In fact, I prefer making Batards to Boules because they're easier to make sandwiches out of, because this is kind of awkward to cut. So I make them more often than I make Boules. So this one just didn't turn out good because I'm not with the pan I'm used to having, the oval shaped pan, because again, it's broken. And I'm waiting for the new one and it's not here yet. One of the things I could have done is taken it while it was proofing, put it in the fridge, and that'll slow down the process. Wait for my pan to come in, bake it later, and then it would have turned out fine. Another thing I could have done is put it in the Dutch oven first before scoring it. Put it in the Dutch oven, score it very carefully without burning myself, and then it probably would have been fine. Another thing I could have done, put it on a sheet pan instead, like I mentioned in other videos, put it in a sheet pan, and then instead of having the lid for the steam, I could have put a pan underneath with water in it to create steam. And then after the 25 minutes is take the steam out, just as you would with taking the lid off, and then let it cook the rest of the time without steam, which is what you do with other shapes and stuff. So could have done that, didn't though. Lots of things I could have done, but this is what happened. So we're gonna see what it looks like, you know, when it's done. It's gonna look funny, I know that. It's probably gonna taste fine, it's probably gonna, we'll see. I'm not sure like how it's gonna turn out exactly. It might be able to just, you know, be used and sliced just fine. Otherwise, I was gonna talk about this in another video, and I still will, but if you have a fail bread, like me this time, you can, if it's still edible, it's not burnt to a crisp or anything, well, even then you might be able to. You can cut it up into quarters or cubes, make croutons out of it. You can put some in the blender or like a food processor, or just cut it up real small and make breadcrumbs out of it. Or you can make like little snacky pieces. You can cut some off and put those in the oven and have them be kind of crispy, and then you can use them as kind of like cracker-like things, but like, you know, you could, like little snack breads, like you can put a little topping on it and eat it, you know. Works that way too. So I was gonna talk about that in a different video, like I said, and I'll go into more detail about it, but basically, I don't know how, like what temperature and how long you have to cook it, but you have to cook it in the oven and put some oil on it, and it'll turn out all, you know, crusty and fried, just like a breadcrumb or a crouton or a snack bread. So again, we'll talk about those in another video more. Like I said, we're gonna see how this one turns out. I'm gonna slice into this one when it's ready. So I'll check back in with you when it's done. I'll see how it looks. See how it looks when I take the lid off too, because that'll be an indication. Got 11 more minutes for that, so. All right, see you soon. All right, I did take a little sneak peek before I had to take the lid off. It looks okay. It looks kind of like a hybrid between a Boule and a Batard now. It's kind of a weird shape, and obviously the scoring is a little off now. But it still looks like it could be a loaf. Like, we'll see what it turns out like, you know, in the end. But right now it looks like it, you know, it kind of looks like bread. That's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't look like exactly what it's supposed to look like, but we'll see. It's probably still edible as bread, so good. All right, let's see how bad it is. Take the lid off. See, it looks kind of like a Boule / Batard. But we'll see when it's done exactly how it looks. But yeah, you can see all the stuff on the side there. It's because the guy kind of coagulated on the side. But anyway, let's close the oven. All right, let's break into this one now. This is one that's, you know, properly done, sort of. I mean, this one's even a little misshapen. I don't know what was wrong with me today. All right, let's go. See what this looks like. Let's see what it looks like. Probably better than the other one. Yeah, I mean, I can't really see much wrong with it. Like I said, the scoring line should have been a little deeper in the middle, because maybe I got more of an ear then, but all right. Like I said, looks fine. I didn't get any pictures of it whole. Can you tell there's a line there if I push it together? All right, it's done. Let's see what it looks like. Let's get a better look. So, that's what it looks like. Not bad. It's a little twisted. Let's get it out of there before it burns more. It's got a little extra piece there that got, you know, stuck to the pan. It's not going to be fun to clean. This thing isn't fun to clean anyway, so. Take this, move it, get out of the way. Then, so, like I said, it's just got a little twisted. Like I said, it's kind of a hybrid between a Boule and a Batard. Like it's kind of ovular, and then it's, you know, kind of circled out a little bit. This is the score line. So it was originally supposed to be like this, but it got all kind of messed up. But like I said, it cooked fine. It had a little bit of like that stuff that was stuck to the side because it got stuck on there. But it's looks pretty good. You know, it's got the hollow thump on it. It's probably, like I said, it's probably fine. Once you cut into it, you're not gonna really be able to tell, but probably. But you know, the outside doesn't look the way it's supposed to, basically, and it's not bad. It's just, it could have been worse. I thought it was worse when it first happened, but I think we fixed it a little bit. But I'm going to, like I said, show you a few examples of what it's supposed to look like. Once I get my new pan, I'll show you how to use it. I might have some older footage too of my other pan that I'll put in, but I'm gonna put that in the bonuses too. But I'll make another one. I'll show you more of that process, how you're supposed to put it in the pan, score it, whatnot, how it's supposed to bake properly, how it's supposed to look when it comes out. I'll show you all that. But this one, it's all right. That's okay. That's okay, that's okay. It's fine. I'm sure it'll look fine when I cut into it. It's not really Pinterest worthy or anything like that. I mean, unless you want to call this like an artistic, you know, choice, which, I mean, if you want to, it's fine. But it doesn't look that bad. All right, for bonus, as usual, I have some of my beginner stuff from when I was a beginner, when I was going through this book originally. So there isn't much to say about them other than it's very beginner looking. Like I've gotten better since then, and if the Batard would have worked out for this video, it would have looked better than my Batard back then, but actually the one back then looks better now because of how much I messed this one up. But that's all I have to say, really. So just to show you that, you know, it doesn't always start out when you just start out. It doesn't always look perfect. All right, dough is done roasting. One of the things I could have done, could have taken it. You know what? I didn't take any pictures of this. This is, I didn't even turn that on, so, all right, I am just flabbergasted ever since that happened. Well, I got one like this when I picked it up before, so. Look at it, look at it. I can do one of these, you know, fancy like. Right? Can I? Hold on. Totally. Right. Alright, that looks better. Alright, how about that? How about that for a picture? Like that?